Hello and welcome to It's All About My Entertainment, or It's All About Me. Welcome, I am here to talk to you about how to build casual commander decks. Now, before we get into it, I kind of want to establish what I consider to be casual. Currently, Wizards of the Coast is kind of designing their own group system, power scaling, whatever. And they're doing it based on what cards you have in your deck, which I think is not a great idea. For example, they consider, Soul Ring to be a tier 4 card, but they put those in pre-constructed decks. And every deck has a Soul Ring at this point, so it doesn't really help compute, at least in my mind. So we're going to establish my own rating system, my own power scaling system, and we'll see what you guys think of it. So the first category is pretty simple. It's pre-constructed decks, precons. These are the ones that Wizards of the Coast design, create, and sell to us in a package deal. Great. You know what those are. Those are for beginners. You buy it, it's already set, ready to go, you play. When you get into a group of people, it's like, hey, I got a precon. People are like, oh, okay, I know what to expect. The next category is casual, right? Casual. You are playing to have fun. You are playing to have your deck do stuff. And that's pretty much it. Now, the reason why this casual part is kind of particular is because it doesn't include certain things, which I will explain in my next categories. The next category I consider to be competitive. Now, competitive is where you're playing to win. You want to win. You're playing to beat the other people because you like that, and there's nothing wrong with that. Now, in competitiveness, what you'd want to do is you'd want to build towards certain win conditions or win cons. Now, with those win cons, there's two aspects to it. The first one is 1-2 combos. Now, the 1-2 win combos are going to be certain card combinations like, I can't remember the names, but it's whenever target opponent loses life, I gain life, and whenever I gain life, target opponent loses life. And that is an infinite combo. It goes back and forth. Those types of things, right? Those 1-2 wins, or where you pop off with goblins or rats or elves, where you spend 20 to 30 minutes activating all your triggers, going through your deck, basically playing solitaire at that point. In a competitive category, you should have at least one or two of those win conditions, right? Because that's the whole point. Now, the final category I consider to be professional, right? Where you are playing to participate in tournaments, you're going to nationals, all that fun stuff. So for the professional category, it is you have as many possible win conditions that you can in your deck, and the goal is to get to those win conditions as fast as possible. I think those four categories simplify the process a bit. It's more about your intent and going into the game of what you want to do rather than basing it on the cards that you have. Because you could have some really strong cards that don't synergize with anything. And they just do that one cool thing, you know? So for me, I'm more of a casual player. So I focus more in the casual category and the pre-con category, right? Because those are designed for you to play the game and have fun. That's what I like to do. I like the back and forth, the strategy, the thinking on your feet, how this card that you have interacts uniquely with a card in someone else's deck when you play it at a certain time and way, and that takes its own set of skill sets. And I like that. That's more my style, that's more my speed. I'm not particularly fond of the competitive or the professional playstyles, which is more or less a race, right? You are trying to build your deck to get to your win con as quickly as possible before the other people in your pod get there so you can win, right? It is a race. And in this type of game format, not my jam. So, with that in mind, we are now going to move forward to where I am going to show you how I build casual commander decks. All right, so I am here to present what I can for you. This is our friend Tifa. She'll be joining us. And to start us off, we're going to be building a mono-red Chandra deck. Now, I thought this would be a fun idea, so we're going to try it, see how it works, and we're going to start off with the commanders. Now, I don't know which commander would work best, so we're going to kind of go through it at this point. Right now, what I have first is Chandra, Fire of Kaladesh. Whenever you cast a red spell, untap Chandra, and you can tap her to deal damage, and then if you deal more damage, you exile her, and she becomes a Planeswalker. Not bad, makes sense, it's on theme, it's on point. What do we got? So, we'll set that over. But we have two other options that could be fun or unique. So, the other option I've got is Kazul, Tyrant of the Cliffs. Now, whenever a creature an opponent controls attacks, if I'm the defending player, I create a 3/3 Ogre unless they pay 3 mana. Now, this is good, especially in a Planeswalker deck, is because I'm going to want to have something out here to create blockers for my Planeswalkers. So this, as a commander, would be a really good idea as well. And then the final one is Plarg and Nasari. This one just allows me to exile the cards from the top of my libraries. An opponent will choose which ones are exiled, and then I can cast the other ones without paying the mana. So this is a good way to cheat out some of those more expensive Planeswalkers. These three are all decent choices, and whichever one I choose to be the commander, the other two are still going to go into the deck because they're still great. So we'll just have to see how we feel about it. So we'll set those aside for now. Now, the next part that we're going to have to go through are the Planeswalkers. There are a lot of Chandra Planeswalkers. And we're going to probably have the most Planeswalkers here in this deck. But we also want to go through them to find out which one will actually synergize with what we have. Now, I've gone through the Planeswalkers. I've gone through instants and sorceries. I've gone through enchantments and artifacts, all ready to kind of set up what I think might work. I've also got just regular creatures. And then over here on the side, I've set aside mountains and then replacement cards. So if there's something in here that we don't want, we'll swap it out for something in here. And I'll go through everything as I show you my process and what we deal with it. So let's start off real quick. To determine which Planeswalkers we keep, we should take a look at what spells on the instant and sorcery category. All right. So first, we got Lightning Bolt. Pretty simple. Deal 3 damage to any target. We got Grape Shot. Deals 1 damage to any target, but it has Storm. So if you have a bunch of these real cheap 1 damage stuffs, which I got a couple in here, having this one storm off afterwards could be really good. Now this feels more like a ping or a burn deck from what it has kind of turned out to be. A Braid, classic damage or artifact removal. Flare of Duplication is going to be good. Sacrifice a creature to choose new targets of a copy and choose new targets of a spell. Wheel of Fortune. So each player discards a card and then draws 7 cards. This could help us out real good if we get stuck. Radiant Lightning, deal 3 damage to target player, 1 damage to each creature that player controls. If you control a creature with power 4 or greater, change the target of the spell or ability for 3 less mana. So that could be good. Disrupt Decorum. Goad all creatures you don't control. That could save us a turn if we want to keep our Planeswalkers alive for a little while. Blasphemous Act. Cost 1 cheaper for each creature on the field. 13 damage each creature. Really good when they have creatures and you just have Planeswalkers. Now, here's something that's going to help out as well. You want to have good mana draw and mana usage. So I went out and I got the 3 best mana cards I could. You got Seething Song, which adds 5 red mana. You got Mana Geyser, which adds a red mana for each tap land opponents control. And Jessica's Will for each card in opponent's hand. Not bad. Destroy target artifact you don't control. Overload, destroy all or each artifact you don't control. Vandal Blast, that's a good one. Skewer the Critics. Skewer the Critics. You can spectacle cost if you combine it with another life loss thing. So deal damage to them, 1 cheaper, or 2 cheaper for 1 to deal 3 damage to additional target. This is going to be a really good one as well. So Skullcrack, it's 2 mana. Players can't gain life this turn, and damage can't be prevented this turn. And then it deals 3 damage to player or planeswalker. The reason why this one's great is should somebody throw out a Teferi's Protection, well then all of a sudden you can just either ping them, or if someone else is attacking them just to kill them, you can be like, haha, nope. So that's a good one to hang on there. Chandra's Pyro Helix, deal 2 damage among 1 or 2 creatures. Chandra's Flame Wave deals 2 damage to target player and creature that player controls. Search library and or graveyard for Chandra Flame's Fury, reveal it, put it into your hand, shuffle. Chandra's Ignition, target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to each other creature and each opponent. Now this one is a maybe, because depending upon how many planeswalkers we keep, we may swap out for extra creatures, and we'll want some bigger creatures for something like this to take effect. So this is a maybe. Chandra's Outrage, 4 damage to target creature and 2 damage to its controller. Chandra's Revolution, 4 damage to target creature, tap a target land, and it doesn't untap during the next step. Chandra's Fury deals 4 damage to target player or planeswalker and 1 damage to each creature that planeswalker controls. Good for wiping out 1/1 tokens. Chandra's Outburst, 4 damage to target player or planeswalker. Search your library for Chandra Bold Pyromancer, reveal it, put in your hand, shuffle. And Chandra's Triumph, deals 3 damage to target creature or planeswalker an opponent controls. If you control a Chandra planeswalker, it deals 5 damage instead. So got a lot of burn, got a lot of single target stuff. So when we pick our planeswalkers, we'll want to see how it feels with all of that. Where's the one that I said? Chandra's Ignition. Okay, Chandra's Ignition is a maybe keep, depending upon what we got for that. So now, let's go through our planeswalkers. So we got Chandra, Torch of Defiance. The first one, exile top card of your library. You may cast that card. If you don't, Chandra's Torch of Defiance deals 2 damage to each opponent. The next +1 is add 2 red mana. Most of the time for these things, I just get the planeswalkers for ones to add mana because it's a huge boost, especially when they're the double like that. -3 to deal 4 damage to target creature, and -7 to get an emblem for whenever I cast a spell, the emblem deals 5 damage to any target. So that one seems like a pretty good one to start off with. Chandra Flamecaller. Create 2 3/1 red elemental creature tokens with haste. Exile them at the beginning of the next end step. 0, discard all cards in your hand, then draw that many cards +1. And -X deals X damage to each creature. Now this one's all right. Getting a wheel where you discard and draw, it's not bad for free. And creating the 2 elementals would be great if they didn't exile, because we need blockers. So that one's kind of a maybe as well. Chandra Awakened Inferno. This spell can't be countered. Each opponent gets an emblem with, at the beginning of your upkeep, this emblem deals 1 damage to you. That's a +2. -3, Chandra's Awakened deals 3 damage to each non-elemental creature, which I think most of Chandra's stuff are elementals. We'll see. And -X, she deals X damage to target creature or planeswalker. If a permanent dealt damage this way would die, exile instead. So that one's not bad. I mean, getting at least 1 turn of dealing 1 damage to them at the upkeep, it's not a bad thing. It's a 6 mana thing, so that's a bit much, but we'll stick with it for now. Chandra Ablaze is our next one. +1 to discard a card. If a red card is discarded this way, it deals 4 damage to any target. -2, each player discards their hand, then draws 3 cards. Another wheel spin thing, so not bad compared to the Flamecaller. And -7, cast any number of red and instant spells, red instant and sorcery cards from your graveyard without paying their mana cost. That could be really great if you're halfway or mostly through the game and you've burned through a lot of things. Just ping somebody out. So it's not a bad one to have onto there. We'll keep that one running because the card draw and the damage is really great, especially if you can get her up to her ult. Chandra Acolyte of Flame. Do a 0 to put a loyalty counter on each red planeswalker you control. And 0, create 2 1/1 red elemental creature tokens, gain haste, exile the next end step. -2, you may cast target instant or sorcery with converted mana cost 3 or less from your graveyard. If you do, it's exiled. So those two in combos could be really good. Now, this one would be really great to have on there because we're going to have a lot of red planeswalkers, so getting free bumps on them, get them quicker to their ults, is a great idea. So we're going to hang on to her. Chandra Flames Catalyst. +1, deals 3 damage to each opponent. -2, you may cast target red or instant story from graveyard. If that would be put in the graveyard, exile instead, so very similar to hers. And discard your hand, then draw 7. Until end, you may cast spells from your hand without paying their mana cost. Another great one, but it's expensive at 6, so getting her out there is going to be kind of rough. Let's see. Chandra Gremlin Wrangler. +1, create a 2/2 red gremlin creature token. -2, deals X damage to any target where X is the number of gremlins you control. Now this one's going to be great because it creates blockers for us. We want that. That's great. Chandra Legacy of Fire. At the beginning of your end step, she deals X damage to each opponent where X is the number of planeswalkers you control. Well, we're going to be wanting a lot, so that's a good one to have. Add 1 red mana for each planeswalker you control. Great. And 0, remove a loyalty counter from each of any number of permanents you control. Exile that many cards from the top of your library. You may play them this turn. That could work if you don't have a hand or something else you got going on there. I'm not exactly sure. So far for the passive and the mana stuff, that's good. I like to hang on to that. All right. Chandra Pyrogenius. +2 to deal 2 damage to each opponent. That's good. -3 to deal 4 damage to target creature. And -10 to deal 6 damage to target player or planeswalker and each creature that player controls and planeswalker that player controls. So that's not a bad one. The dealing damage to each opponent works with our burn. We'll hang on to it for now. Chandra Nalar. +1 to deal 1 damage to target player or planeswalker. -X to deal X damage to target creature. And -8 to deal 10 damage to target player and each creature that player controls. So that's very similar to this one. Except that does to each opponent on the plus, and that does only to target. This one's a little cheaper than that, does more damage on the end burn, and is quicker to get to. That's an interesting one. We might set her aside to the maybe pile. Chandra Fire Artisan. Whenever 1 or more loyalty counters are removed from her, she deals that much damage to target opponent or planeswalker. Exile top card of your library. You may play it this turn. -7. Exile top 7 cards of your library. You may play them this turn. Not particularly fond of this one. Getting the +1 to exile top card of your library, you'll have to do that first in case it's a land or something that you're like, oh, well, I want to do that to get this out there so you don't lose it. But I've never particularly been a fan of the exile, not knowing what you're going to get, and then you might not get a cast. It may be too expensive, might be not good at the particular time, so that one's going to be a maybe as well. Okay. Chandra Dressed to Kill. +1, add red mana. She deals 1 damage to up to 1 target player or planeswalker. So that's great. Doubles up on what we're looking for. Exile top card of your library. If it's red, you may cast it. And -7 to exile top 5 cards of your library. You may cast red spells among them this turn. You get an emblem with whenever you cast a red spell, this emblem deals X damage to any target where X is the amount of mana spent to cast that spell. Now that would be a good ultimate to get. Getting her up there. But this +1 getting the mana and the ping, that's good. And she's cheap. That 3 mana, great. Great. Chandra Pyromaster. +1 to deal 1 damage to target creature or planeswalker, and 1 damage up to target creature that player or planeswalker controls. That creature can't block this turn. That's great. You get more value for what you're doing. Exile top card. You may play it this turn. And exile top 10 cards of your library for -7. Choose an instant or sorcery card this way. Copy it 3 times, and you may cast the copies without paying their mana cost. That could be particularly good if, say, we wanted to cast 3 copies of, say, a mana or a pinger. So that one could be really great. Yeah, we'll hang on that one. Chandra, Flames Fury. Deals 2 damage to any target. -2 to deal 4 damage to target creature and 2 damage to its controller. And -8 to deal 10 damage to target player and each creature that player controls. Okay, so this seems similar to one of the ones that got back here. But I know that there is a card in here that we went through that searches for that. So casting that to get this out there, good combo to hang on to. Chandra, Heart of Fire. Discard your hand, then exile the top 3 cards of your library. Until end of turn, you may play cards exiled this way. +1 to deal 2 damage to any target, and -9 to search your graveyard and library for any number of red instant or sorcery cards. Exile them, then shuffle. You may cast them this turn. Add 6 red mana. Well, that one's not bad. For the +1 to deal 2 damage in and of itself is fine. But the -9 to search for any red or instant sorceries, you may cast them this turn, add 6. That could work out well, that could not, depending upon how many you have left, how much mana you have available, what you need to do. So that one's more particular. Because I'd probably only use the +1. So we'll put that in the maybe pile as well. Chandra, the Firebrand. +1 her to deal 1 damage to any target. -2, when you cast your next instant or sorcery spell, copy that spell, choose new targets. And -6, deals 6 damage to each up to 6 targets. So that one's great off the bat. We'll hang on to you. Chandra, Bold Pyromancer. +1 to add 2 red, and then deal 2 damage to target player. Great value. -3 to deal 3 damage to target creature or planeswalker. And -7 to deal 10 damage to target player and each creature and planeswalker they control. Not bad. Got some similar things going on there with others. And then finally, last one, Chandra, Hope's Beacon. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, copy it. You may choose new targets for the copy. Triggers only once each turn. Add 2 mana of any combination of colors for the +2. The +1 is exile top 5 cards of your library. Until end of your next turn, you may cast instant and sorcery spells from among them. Alright, so that one's a little bit better because it gives you until next turn as opposed to end of turn. And then -X to just deal X damage to each of up to 2 targets. So the passive and the +2 is great, and the +1's not bad considering some of the other ones. So we're going to hang on to you as well. Now I want to double check because there was 2 that had you search. Bold Pyromancer, which we didn't put in the maybes. Okay, and then Flames Fury, was that the other one? Flames Fury. Okay, let's make sure I didn't miss any other searches. Now I went out and I snagged what most Chandra themed I could. I'm sure that there's more out there. I just got all the ones that I could find, and hopefully it'll be enough to stay on task. I'm gonna take a quick drink. Hang on. Get thirsty talking so much. All right, so we have possible 4 removals of these planeswalkers, which still leaves us with a good amount. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, instead of a total of 18. Okay, so that's not bad. So we've gone through those. They seem to work out well, and these are kind of like we might swap them out for something else. So let's go ahead and move on to our enchantments and our artifacts. So our enchantments, we're going to start off with Possibility Storm because it's fun. It's casual. We're here to have fun, make a little thing. So whenever a player casts a spell from their hand, that player exiles it. Then exiles cards from the top of their library until they exile a card that shares a card type with it. That player may cast that card without paying its mana cost. Then they put all the cards exiled with Possibility Storm on the bottom of their library in a random order. Now this one would be great because we got 14 of these guys to come out. So if we have one that we don't want as much, to get out another one, maybe pay 4 to get out the 6, that might work out well. I don't know. But it won't be just for us, it'll be for other people. And this one's more just for random chaos and fun. Maybe good, maybe not. Warstorm Surge. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, it deals damage equal to its power to any target. Now this one could work with some of the ones that create tokens for that turn, but we also aren't going to have too many creatures, particularly because we're going to have a lot more planeswalkers. So this one is a maybe, depending upon what we end up switching out or keeping. Fiery Emancipation. If a source I control would deal damage to a permanent or player, it deals triple that damage to permanent or player instead. This is going to be great because we got a lot of pingers, and tripling up the damage would be fantastic. So we're going to hang on to you. I don't have a lot of those because I figured if I got a lot of the doubles and the triples of the damage would be too much. So I just went with a triple because I think that'd be better. Oath of Chandra. It deals 3 damage to target creature an opponent controls when it enters. At the beginning of each end step, if a planeswalker entered the battlefield under your control this turn, Oath of Chandra deals 2 damage to each opponent. Now that's not a bad one for a little bit of burn, but that means this would have to survive any removal, and then we'd have to hopefully get out 14 worth of things, which is 28 damage to each opponent, which isn't bad. So not too bad. It's cheap. We'll hang on to it for now. Caged Sun. As Caged Sun enters the battlefield, choose a color. We're choosing red. Creatures you control get +1/+1. And then whenever a land's ability causes you to add 1 or more mana for the chosen color, add an additional. So it doubles our mana with lands. So that's great. That helps out a lot. We want to keep that. Now, Staff of the Flame Magus. Whenever you cast a red spell or a mountain enters under your battlefield under your control, you gain 1 life. I like this one just because we're going to put out mountains. We're going to be casting red spells. Gaining a little bit life here and there is going to be good because people are going to be attacking us and pinging us, and it's not a bad thing. Hazardous Monument. Red creature spells you cast cost 1 less. And then whenever you cast a creature spell, you may discard a card. If you do, draw a card. That's a good draw engine. Makes our creatures cheaper, which we may be cycling those out. So we'll hang on to that for now. Gilded Lotus. Add 3 mana of any one color. Ramp. Gotta love it. Skyclave Relic. It's got a 3 kicker. It's indestructible. And when it enters, if it was kicked, create 2 tap tokens that are copies of it. So now we'll have 3 of these that add 1 mana of any color and are indestructible. So should we have a board wipe, we'll still have good mana rock sources. I like that. Now this one is debatable. Equipped creature gets +2/+2 and has protections from instants and sorceries. Now that's great, the pro instants and sorceries. Now the reason why I brought this one in is because when it deals combat damage to a player, create a treasure token, which is extra mana, and then when you cast your next instant or sorcery spell, copy that spell and choose new targets. And that would be great because we got a lot of those things going on in here. The unfortunate thing about the protection from instants and sorceries is we don't have a creature that does trample or has some other form of evasion. It's going to get blocked more often than not. So we'll still hang on to that for now. Maybe we'll swap it out for a different sword. Dragon's Claw. Whenever a player plays a red spell, you may gain a life. So that's not just you. If there's someone else out there that's got some red spells, which is likely because I think red and black are like the 2 more popular colors. So there's a good chance that they'll have some red. Ruby Medallion. Red spells you cast cost 1 less. Always good to have. Make these things cheaper. Lightning Greaves, equipped creature has haste and shroud, equipped for 0. Good stuff. Armillary Sphere, pay 2 and tap. Sacrifice it to search for 2 basic land cards, reveal them, put them in your hand. So if you have some ramp issues you need to get, it sets it out for you. Now, Commander's Plate is going to be great because it is +3/+3 and protection from each color that's not in your commander's identity color. So it'll be everything but red, which is fantastic. It'll help give us some protection for blocking. Now, this one's great. I'm glad that this one came out, and this is definitely going in the deck. Luxior Giada's Gift. Now, Luxior Giada's Gift equips a creature. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 for each counter on it, and then equipped permanent isn't a planeswalker and is a creature in addition to its other types. Loyalty abilities can still be activated. So this is great. This is really good because we got a lot of planeswalkers that we can now turn into a creature and use that to help block other planeswalkers. It's fantastic. I love it. Chandra's Regulator. Whenever you activate a loyalty ability of a Chandra planeswalker, you may pay 1. If you do, copy that ability and choose new targets. Pay 1 and tap to discard a mountain card or a red card to draw a card. So another search engine, and getting to copy a lot of these triggers, super cool. We're loving it. We're loving it. All right. So that's what we got through on these things already. So we got only one maybe. So not too bad. We're doing all right so far. Now let's move on to the creatures. Don't have a lot of creatures because I had the planeswalkers take up the creature slots. So we'll see how that goes. So we got Immodane the Pyro Hammer. Whenever instant or sorcery spell you control that targets only a single creature deals damage to that creature, Immodane deals that much damage to each opponent. So this is great. Combine this with a lot of our target stuff, deal each additional damage to stuff. It's beautiful. Beautiful. It's beautiful. You're in the way. I'm going to put you over here. Okay. So Immodane, keep it around. Rose, Cutthroat Raider. First strike, at end of combat on your turn, if you attack this turn, create a junk token for each opponent you attacked, and whenever you sacrifice a junk, add mana. So this is great. If we get some of those pluses that send out those creatures for 1 turn, we get this triggered, we get a bunch of junk, get some mana. It's a good combo. Want to hang on to that. Bothersome Quasit. Menace. Goated creatures your opponent's control can't block. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, goad target creature an opponent controls. This is great protection. So we cast one of these guys over here, target something, hey, that's goaded, can't attack me, our planeswalkers live. Fantastic. Good stuff. Chandra's Firemaw. Chandra's Firemaw has haste, and when it enters the battlefield, you may search your library and or graveyard for a card named Chandra Flames Catalyst. Reveal it, put in your hand, shuffle. Let's make sure I didn't do the catalyst over here. Okay, so no, we're good. Catalyst. Do I even have a catalyst? Blaze. Catalyst. Okay, cool. So we got 3 Planeswalker search cards. Fantastic. Chandra's Pyroling. Whenever a source you control deals non-combat damage to an opponent, this gets +1/+0 and gains double strike until end of turn. That's great. We're going to be casting a lot of that crap. Chandra's Spitfire. It is flying, and whenever an opponent is dealt non-combat damage, it gets +3/0 until end of turn. So that's another great card. Chandra's Incinerator. This spell costs X less to cast, where X is the total amount of non-combat damage dealt to your opponents this turn. So it's a 6 cost with 1 red. So we can reduce that to 1 depending upon if we have some of these to deal damage out there. Great. 6/6 trample. Awesome. Whenever a source you control deals non-combat damage to an opponent, Chandra's Incinerator deals that much damage to target creature or planeswalker that player controls. Fantastic. Everything's synergizing, syncing up, looking good. Gutter Snipe. When you cast an instant sorcery spell, deal 2 damage to each opponent. Simple, fun, classic. Sorry about that. The camera cut off a little bit on this last one. So Chandra's Phoenix, flying haste. Whenever an opponent is dealt damage by a red or instant or sorcery spell you control or by a red planeswalker you control, return Chandra's Phoenix from your graveyard to your hand. 3 mana cost, 2/2 for recursion in red. It's great. We don't get that a lot. So from what we got here is we got 64 cards that we're going to be hanging out for sure. And we got 6 cards that are maybes. Now, if there's anyone that we want to consider, it's going to be these ones here. So the creating 2 3/1 red elemental creature tokens with this, that's 6 damage that I can throw at anything. Will it work? Could it work? I don't know. Let's see. We got 2 damage, 2 damage, 6 damage, 1, 1, 4, 3, 3, 4. And those gremlins are 2 2s. I mean, little damage can do nice here and there, but we don't have enough creatures to really justify something like Warstorm. Because if this was like, say, in a Goblin Warren, where I'm like, oh, I tap Krenko and I put out 20 goblins, that's 20 damage, right? So that's a lot better. Doesn't really work in this one, so I think we'll have to drop out Warstorm Surge. And we'll probably have to do same with Chandra's Ignition. Target creature I control deals damage equal to its power to each other creature and each opponent. Now, if I have more than one creature that I want to have blocks, we don't want to deal damage to those creatures, even if we want to kill the other people's. So it's a maybe. That one's still a maybe. But these 2, I think we'll have to step out along with these 4. So that leaves us with 60. You know what? We will hang on to that one. So that leaves us at 65 cards. We'll set these guys aside. So that's 65 in the main deck. Now, let's go over lands real quick. So we're going to stick with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 regular red mountains. Now we got some other fancy lands that we're going to be throwing in here. So first we got Sokenzan Crucible of Defiance. Legendary land, tap to add red. Or you can channel for 4, discarding it to create 2 1/1 color spirit creature tokens. They gain haste until end of turn, and it costs 1 less for each legendary creature you control. That part might be a little rough because we're not going to have too many terrible creatures there, but it's legendary, it's red, it's a possibility. You never know, there's a chance. Sheevan Gorge, colorless mana, or pay 3 to deal 1 damage to each of your opponents. Now this one's a maybe. If we have something like Fiery Emancipation out, this is going to be great because that's 3 damage. That one's still going to be a maybe because we don't really have any other triggers that come from off of that. Command Tower, just red, always fun to have in there. Nykthos is going to be good though. Nykthos Shrine to Nyx, taps for colorless, or you can pay 2 to choose a color, red, and then add that mana for the devotion to that color. So however many pips you have in that color is your devotion. That's a great one to have. Deserted Temple. Colorless or pay 1 to untap target land. Guess what? Those 2 in a combo works great. Shrine of Forsaken. Colorless or 2 colorless, depending upon if you have 7 or more lands. Rogue's Passage. Now this one's a maybe, because we're not going to have too many things that we'll want to have there other than our Sword of Wealth and Power, I think is what it is. This would be a good workaround for that, to get that to go off. But that's 4 mana. We'll hang on to it for now. Temple of the Foss God, 2 mana for 5 lands. Shouldn't be too much of a problem. Now Vesuva, this is an interesting one. You may have Vesuva enter the battlefield tapped as a copy of any land on the battlefield. This could be great. So if there's somebody out there that has like an Urborg or something, or a Bojuka Bog, or something that, not an Urborg, but a Jubuku Bog, and you're like, oh, this is a graveyard deck, I want to do that. I'm going to copy their Bojuka Bog, I'm going to exile their graveyard, so that way they don't have that play anymore. Great one to have. Reliquary, no maximum hand size, that's great. Maze of Ith, untap target attacking creature, prevent all damage, combat damage to be dealt to and dealt by that creature this turn. Great way to protect our planeswalkers. Beseju, who shelters all, enters tapped. I can pay 2 life to add colorless, and if that mana was spent on instant or sorcery, it can't be countered. So that's not too bad if we got something that we want to make sure goes through. Nesting Ground. Tap colorless or pay 1 to tap. Move a counter from target permanent you control onto another target permanent. So this would be great if we want to try and get off some of these combos ultimates earlier. So if we have more than one Planeswalker out and we're like, oh, I'm going to move a counter from this one to this one, so that way that one's there, and then bam, I got enough ultimate. Could be a way to speed it up a bit. Interplanar Beacon. Whenever you cast a Planeswalker, you gain a life. Not bad. Taps are colorless. Pay 1 to add 2 mana of different colors. Spend this only to cast Planeswalkers. So it's a little boost. Not too terrible. And then Ancient Tomb. 2 mana, deals 2 damage to you. Not a bad thing. So how much we did, was this 17 or 18? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Okay. And then this will be 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31. All right, so we got 31 lands. Now, some people might tell you that you want to have more like 35 lands in a deck, and I'm not against that. It's not a bad way to go about it. But if I'm having like 30, 31 lands, and I've got like 3 or 4, 5 mana rocks, then I'll probably say that that's a decent balance. Plus, you've also got a couple Planeswalkers that give you mana as well. So those equal out a bit. I think we will set Sheevan Gorge aside. So if we got 31 lands and 65 creatures, that means we've got 4 cards. So we can add 4 cards. Now we're probably going to want to up on the creatures. So let's take a look at some of our backups that we have here and see what works. Smoldering Egg. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, put a number of Ember counters on that equal to the amount of mana spent to cast it. Then it has 7 or more counters. Remove it and transform. Becomes a 4/4 Flying Dragon. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, it deals 2 damage to any target. That's not bad. Something fell on the other side of the room. I don't know what that is, but we're not going to worry about it at the moment. I think that's great. We got a lot of instant or sorceries. Cool. We're going to keep that. We're going to step you aside, put lands over here. All right. So that's 1. Now we got some other burn combos here that we can do. We've got something like Firebrand Archer. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, 1 damage to each opponent. That's not bad. Kellen Planar Trailblazer. Pay 2 if he's a scout. Becomes a fairy detective. Gains whenever it deals combat damage to a player. Exile top card of your library. You can play the card that turn. Not particularly a fan of that one. 3 mana if it's a detective. It becomes a 3/2 human fairy rogue and gains double strike. That one's not terrible. 1 mana to transform later at a 3 mana for a 3/2 double strike. Yeah, that's workable. Molten Monstrosity. It's 1 less to cast where X is the greatest power among creatures I control. That's not going to be great because we're not going to have very powerful creatures. So we're probably going to say no to that one. This is a big boy. Dragon Tyrant, 10 mana. Flying Trample, double strike. It's a 6/6. At the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice it unless you pay 4 red. And then you can pay red to buff it, which I think is Dragon's Breath is the name of the ability. It's +1, +0 until end of turn. So this is a big win con, right? Like let's say if we have Possibility Storm, and then we cast this, and then we get this instead, so bam, that's out there for free for a lot cheaper. But then the upkeep, probably, but it is a big swinger boy, and we do want some big boys, because we have a lot of small boys. So having a big boy is not terrible. It could be fine for a turn or 2, so we'll put that into the maybe. Put these over here in the nose. Themberchod. Trample, when it enters the battlefield, he deals X damage to each other creature without flying in each player, where X is the number of mountains you control. That will include us. And then you can exert him when he attacks to gain flying until end of turn. But he won't untap during the next untap. So that's not bad. Having a lot of mountains could be good. Deal a bunch of damage to a board wipe. If we want to keep our planeswalkers up and running, we can wipe out some of our creatures. Another big boy. I'm not feeling that one. Drakuseth Maw Flames. Flying, whenever it attacks, deals 4 damage to any target and 3 damage to each of up to 2 other targets. That's great. So that's a 4 and then 3/3. So that's good. That's a good pinger. That's one that we'll probably have Maw as opposed to Tyrant just for that lack of upkeep. So it might be a good one to hang on to. And we don't have flyers, so we want flyers. Heiko Yamazaki, the general, trample whenever samurai or warrior you control attacks alone. You may cast target artifact from your graveyard. Now, this would be a great way to get some stuff back, but we don't have a lot of samurai or warrior. At least I'm pretty sure. Goblin, elemental, demon. Yeah, so that one's not really going to synergize a lot, and the only one that would be benefiting from it is Heiko. So probably going to have to say no to that, unfortunately. We got another pinger here, like the Firebrand. This is Kessick. Non-creature spell, deals 1 damage to each opponent. Treasure Nabber could be good. Whenever an opponent taps an artifact for mana, gain control of that until your next turn. This could be good to help give us some slight buffs on things. So that'll be good, maybe. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, deals 1 damage to each opponent. Erebor Flamesmith. Chandra's Magmut. You can tap it to deal 1 damage to target player or planeswalker. It's a 2/2 for 2. It's not terrible, but I think we'll say no for now. Instant Punishing Fire. Deal 2 damage to any target. Whenever an opponent gains life, I may pay a red. If I do, return it from your graveyard to your hand. That could be a good recursion thing. We have that on there. Urabrask. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, it deals 1 damage to each target opponent. Add fire. Add red. Red, exile it to return it. Activate it only if I cast 3 more instants or sorceries. And what does this do? Great Work deals 3 damage to target opponent and each creature they control. Create 3 treasure tokens. Until end of turn, you may cast instants from your graveyard. Exile them if you do, and then return to the battlefield and tap. So that's not terrible. That's a pretty good one because it does damage, which is what we want when we do things, and it gives us mana. So I think Urabrask is a good for sure. So that's 2. We got 2 more. Taurian Mauler. Changeling, whenever an opponent casts a spell, you may put a +1 counter on Taurian. That would be a really good one because it'll give us big creatures, and we want some sort of big creature to help us out with that. Court of Ire. When it enters the battlefield, you become the monarch at the beginning of your end keep. If Ire deals 2 damage to any target. If you're the monarch, it deals 7 damage instead. Normally this would be great, but we're not likely to have a lot of blockers to keep this. So I'm going to have to say no on that one. Power Balance. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, you may reveal the top card of your library. If you do, you may cast that card without paying its mana cost if the 2 spells have the same mana value. This would also be a really good way of cheating out stuff, especially creatures. Yeah, we can hang on to that one. Let's see. Rolling Vortex. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, rolling deals 1 damage to them. Whenever a player casts a spell, if no mana was spent to cast it, deals 5 damage. Red, your opponents can't gain life this turn. Oh, that's not bad. Preventing them from gaining life, dealing a little bit of damage to them, and then a lot of people have a ways of cheating out free spells, so that wouldn't be terrible either. Past in Flames. Each instant or sorcery card in your graveyard has flashback until end of turn. The flashback cost is equal to the mana cost. So I have to pay 4 and then possibly have... I mean, that's a good way to get stuff back from the graveyard, but I don't see that happening too much. We'll put that there. Sword of Once and Future. Now this one's a little bit better because it's protection from blue and black as opposed to just instants and sorcery, so that might give us some evasion to attack. Whenever a equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, surveil 2, then you may cast an instant or sorcery spell with mana value 2 or less from your graveyard without paying its mana cost, then exile it. Which, that's not bad. We got a lot of stuff in there that would do that. I'm probably thinking we'll swap out Chandra's Ignition, and we'll put in the sword. Having 2 swords, I think, would be better than just having the 1 sword. And then, let's see, Goblin Snowman. Whenever Goblin Snowman blocks, prevent all combat damage that would be dealt to and dealt by it this turn. Goblin Snowman deals 1 damage to target creature it's blocking. Well, that doesn't... So, Whenever it blocks, prevent all damage that would be dealt to and by it this turn. So any damage that would be dealt to it and dealt by it this turn if it blocks. But then I can tap it to deal 1 damage to target creature it's blocking. But if it blocks, then we're just not going to worry. Yeah, we're not worrying about that. That's confusing. Okay, so we got 2 cards. Let's see. What are the ones that really stood out? All right, let's see here. All right, so I'm going to say that these top 4, Power Balance, Mauler, Treasure Nabber, and Maw of Flames, are going to be the ones that we're going to prioritize. Not too particular about pinging everybody once each time I do something. I mean, that's okay. These are okay. And then the no life gain enchantment's not bad. Recursion's not bad. And the single recursion's not bad. So we'll definitely set aside these guys because I'm not particularly interested in doing that type of thing. Because we're just keeping it casual. Ping everybody by little by little. I'm thinking the Maw is good because having more flyers is great. That should leave us with 1 more of these. So these will help cheat out mana and cheat out spells. But then this guy can just get really big, which isn't a problem. But then he'll also become the target of something for sure. Because people are like, oh no, he's really big. So this is a tough one. I'm a little bit more inclined to go creatures, just because we have so few. So we'll set these guys back out here. Now I do have a bunch of mana gainers already. So we'll probably just go for another big boy. All right. So let's double check everything, make sure we're up to 100. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Oh, let's actually do those by tens. That'll be a little bit easier. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right, so that's 40. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, now it comes down to the last little bit, picking our commander that's going to work best with what we have here. So, having Chandra as the commander would make sense because it is a Chandra-themed deck. But getting Khazul out to have more guaranteed blockers for the Planeswalkers, I think is better. Well, almost guaranteed. They're not likely to pay 3 mana every time they attack. And then this is just a fun one. We'll hang on to that. So it comes down to these guys. Either Chandra for the theme or this one more practical. This is a tough decision. This is what we got to decide between. Cast a red spell and tap it. Deals 1 damage if it has dealt 3 or more damage this turn. So I'd have to cast 3 red spells to get her to flip. Da-da-da. You know, we're going to go with Kazul. I think having the guaranteed, more likely guaranteed than not, blockers to protect your planeswalkers, which is the point, I think is better. So Kazul, Tyrant of the Cliffs, is going to be our commander for our Chandra-themed mono-red casual commander deck. Point I want to do. I know that there are going to be some of you out there that are looking a lot at art and being like, those are proxies, those aren't real. Yeah, I would recommend you buying singles because they're cheaper and you're actually guaranteed to get what you want, as opposed to buying a deck or buying in bulk or booster packs and you may not get it. I highly recommend buying singles and then also proxying out some of the bigger stuff, because there's going to be cards that cost $50 and you're like, I don't want to pay $50 for a piece of cardboard. I'm like, that's totally fine. So go out and get yourself a nice little proxy. That one's real. This one's a proxy. Go out and get a proxy. It's casual play, right? We're not playing competitive. Competitive, I completely understand. You want to have the real card. It's part of the rules. Makes sense. But casual, it's for fun. Support the game as you can. Hop on Card Kingdom or TCG Player, and you can grab like $20 to $30 worth of singles that are like 50 cents to $1. And that's where a couple of these I got. They were cheaper enough. I buy them in bulk, 20, 30 bucks. $3 to $5 for shipping and handling. Not terrible. Throw all these together and make a combination of real and proxies, because again, it's about having fun and not being a money sink, because they're getting really pricey these days. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed my Magic the Gathering super casual deck building for our mono red Chandra deck. I've been wanting to build this for a while, put it together. Now I'm going to sleeve it, and we're going to go hopefully play it sometime soon and see how it does. But yeah, thanks for tuning in. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and we'll catch you later.